Welcome back to the glorious People's Republic of Rome. Although we might not be a People's Republic for much longer, enter the Revolution. Decades of feudal oppression, religious intolerance, and unjust taxation have all contributed to the revolutionary movement beginning to surface across our lands. Consul Leonard Marinus has desperately been seeking resolutions to the ever-increasing problems, as our country finds itself at the mercy of the increasingly ambitious burghers supported by the outraged commoners. The commoners and burghers of Lazio have joined the Roman revolutionaries of Maritima. In a swift strike, insurgency stormed the local prison of Rome, arming themselves in the process and declaring the active state of revolution against the anarchy regime. Dire times are ahead of us. So I actually looked up about this event, and it's actually going to be a very small revolt. Why? Because the size of the revolt is based on your level of absolutionism, of which we have 0, because we went all in on liberalism. In fact, we're currently sitting at 100% liberalism. The other modifier that affects it is our crown power, which is pretty low, honestly, only at 33%. And then finally, pop satisfaction, which is honestly kind of high across the whole nation. It's mainly only conquered territories that have low pop satisfaction. If we look here, we can see our pop satisfaction. Look how green it is. Look how vibrant and green it is. It's kind of hard to look at because of how green it is. Yeah, people are pretty happy in our nation, so this revolution doesn't make much sense, but it's happening anyway. Dire times are ahead of us. 7,772k of our pops across 29 provinces will join the cause of the Roman revolutionaries. Prosperity in Rome will drop by 15%. There's our Roman revolutionaries. Look at what a horrible green colour they have. Now we can choose whether to join them. After the storming and fall of Rome, the Roman revolutionaries have declared a civil war against Consul Leonard Marinus and the Republic as a whole. The Roman revolutionaries might be nothing but a provincial assembly, but its very presence is a very real threat to the Imperial Roman Republic. If not dealt with swiftly, our entire state might collapse. And then we can choose to, we must show these upstarts their place, or we can say perhaps they're right and play as them. So that's what we're going to do. As the world around us erupts into revolutionary fervor, the winds of change reach even the farthest corners of our republic. Inspired by the cries of liberty, equality, and fraternity, our choice to embrace the changing times will ripple through the ages. Call for reform is loud. The consequences of embracing such an upheaval are unknown. The people are divided. The elites fear the loss of their privilege. Foreign powers look on with concern. However, the promise of a more just, egalitarian society beckon. We could lead the charge for a new world order despite perilous challenges from all sides. We fight for the people. As long as we remain revolutionary, we will receive the following benefits. 25% increase to our manpower, 25% increase to our army morale, and a maximum war exhaustion of -5, which is kind of bad because it means we'll sooner hit maximum war exhaustion than otherwise, but it's not a big deal. Alright, so what do we got? As we said, our rebellion is quite small compared to the rest of the nation. Militarily, we're kind of weaker, but we've kind of benefited because I decided to move the People's Legions here, and it's because they stayed loyal to the actual government. They're kind of trapped within Rome, or within our borders, so it should be possible for us to just annihilate them. We actually get some very big armies made up of just actual regulars. We should be able to counter the People's Legions and just wipe them out. Once we do that, there's nothing really stopping us conquering the rest of the nation. Let's start dealing with them as fast as we can. As you can see, we've actually lost all of the reforms we want, all of the privileges we once had. We still do have our normal reforms, though. We're still a peasant republic. But now we're going to also be a revolutionary republic. I'm not sure if... No, you're not supposed to be able to have both of these. These are both major reforms. You're only really supposed to have one at a time. I'm not sure if Peasant Republic will vanish once we become a revolutionary republic for real. I guess we'll find out. When it comes to economy, we're kind of in a bad way. We've got massive costs due to... Whoa, is this real? I've just discovered that you can use the mouse wheel to increase and decrease your expenses, or the expensive bar. What the hell? I didn't know this. Did you know this? Wow, this changes everything. I mean, not really, but it does change some things. Alright, enough distractions. Because of the cost of our army, we're massively in the red when it comes to income. We're going to try minting a little, but that's not going to help because there's not actually any gold in our country. But we should be able to solve that relatively quickly. It will take a month for our actual income to stabilize, but we'll probably go deep into the red when it comes to minting in order to avoid bankruptcy, which is of course something we don't want. We also now need to reselect all of the laws we once had because they've defaulted to being unselected. We're also going to raise our levies because we're going to need them. We kind of need to just retake as much of the country as we can as fast as we can. Not only because, of course, we want the country to be under our control, but I'm a little worried that the country will experience revolts while we're fighting them, which may result in the country losing territory that we don't really want to lose. Let's begin. We're first of all just going to immediately attack the People's Legion next to us. Unfortunately, their army is of a higher quality than ours, so it might be a little awkward. We'll see how it goes. We've got a major battle. I'm not sure if we're winning. I think we're just going to retreat. We're going to retreat and kind of hope the People's Legions separate around. Looks like they're all going in for a siege on Rome. That's kind of good. We're also going to set our levy armies to just go and siege as much as possible while we clean up the People's Legions. I should have demolished a lot of these forts before this happened so that it would be very easy to take them. It was a mistake on my part. That's the problem with not having prior knowledge. One thing of note is as we take land, it will immediately flip to us because this is a civil war, and we can raise the levies in that new territory as well, which should help us increase our manpower as the war goes on. We of course have a load of cabinet seats to hand out. I'm kind of hesitating on assigning people to them because I want to preserve our income, or our money at the very least. Instead, I'm just going to leave them blank, I think. People's Legion are trying to escape Rome via ship. That's kind of the worst thing that could happen. We don't want them to escape. We want to annihilate them here so they can't go on to cause trouble in the future. I'm going to jump on them. Might have been a little premature, but I think we can win. The thing is, we have access to, our armies are actually made up of better soldiers because we've gained access to the next era of soldiers while they're still on the previous era, so we're kind of just going to wipe them. It feels horrible slaughtering our People's Legions, but it is what it is. We also lost our religious aspects, so we'll need our religious influence to build up again so that we can reapply them. That's unfortunate. We've also lost all of the cultures that we had accepted. So we do start with some prestige, so I think we'll just immediately spend it to accept some cultures. It's going to be a close one, but the People's Legion's actually going to carry the day here. Although we've killed 100,000 of them, we ended up retreating. They aren't going to be able to replenish their numbers though, because they're within our territory. So we'll just strike them again once we've let our morale replenish a little. There we go, we've slaughtered the People's Legions. I don't feel good about it, but it is what's happened. That now kind of puts us on a better footing because most of the army of the resisting nation is made up of levies. So we kind of need to strike hard and fast using our regulars to sweep through the country. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have our regulars just aim for castles and aim to take them as fast as possible. We do start with a lot of manpower though, and because we've got that benefit to our manpower from being revolutionary, as long as we're careful and we make sure to resupply our armies with their manpower, we shouldn't have too hard of a time just sweeping through all of these forts. Whereas on the flip side, the actual nation will struggle to siege down the forts because they have to make use of levies to do so. One of the things I regret was researching the upgrade that made it so that we had max of 1 attrition as the previous nation, because now we're being affected by that. Once this war has lasted for 12 months, so a year, there'll be the potential for the side to surrender. I'm really hoping we can take enough land and do enough damage that the main nation just surrenders as fast as possible. Last thing we want is for this war to really drag on for many reasons. We've managed to retake enough Roman territory that we actually have an income now, which is great. We're kind of going to rush up getting our Republican tradition to max for obvious reasons. It'll help with rebellions once we start retaking this land, and we can then start thinking about handing out some privileges. We may want to because a lot of the estates aren't very happy. For example, our nobility's default satisfaction equilibrium is actually going to be -50 at 19%, so we're actually going to have to hand out some privileges to them to actually make them happy. One horrible fact I've just noticed is that these regiments can't be reinforced because we don't have the research for them. So we're going to need to build some actual armies made up of the previous generation of units, so that we can actually reinforce them. That isn't pleasant to do, but it's what has to be done. But since we now know that, we can kind of use these armies without worrying about replenishing them, because we can't replenish them, so we should kind of just throw them at the enemy without much of a care, which doesn't sound nice to do, but needs must. It looks like a revolt did happen against our main nation. It's led by It looks like Egyptians here. So the Mamluks have joined in. Hopefully, I mean, our country should win this war, just based surely on the numbers. It's whether they'll redirect their armies to go and fight the rebellion and not fight us. We can hope. That's all we really can do. One thing of note is we're actually benefiting from that attrition modifier I talked about earlier. So that definitely helps with reducing the numbers of their guys that are sieging us down. All right, the war's been going off all long enough that we now have the option to surrender, which means the AI on the other side should also have the option to surrender. We'll just have to hope that they eventually do. They massively outnumber us when it comes to numbers, though most of their army is just levies, where a large portion of ours is regulars. We're also recruiting more regulars. I'm not really sure what the situation is like for them. I know they've lost pretty much all of their manpower generating buildings because they were all centralized around Rome. Another war update. I think we're winning. We've killed so many of them. They're down to just 100,000 or 200,000 or so, and that's nearly all actual levies compared to our armies, which, even though there's only 70,000 of them, are mainly regulars. If we look, only 7,000 of his armies are regulars, whereas our 60,000 of our 70,000 are regulars. Then they're kind of losing the war with the rebels over here, but they've killed loads of them though. I suppose it's just a case, we'll just have to see. I hope the AI doesn't give up too much land. We can reclaim it as long as it's not too much, right? We're now moving into France and the Balkans. There's actually quite a lot of them in the France. The Balkans is pretty unoccupied and we're just sweeping through it. There's large amounts of enemy levies hanging around in France. Who would have thought that France would be the headquarters of the Anarchy regime? Looks like another rebellion has started against our Roman guys. This time it's Eastern Rome rebelling against Rome. I guess these are Greek rebels? Yeah, looks like it. Again, hopefully they don't become a problem for us. We're not at war with any of these rebellions, I don't think, which may make things a little awkward when we show up at the borders. Dear God, we've done it. It only took 21 years, but we've done it. We defeated the People's Republic and now the Revolutionary People's Republic. Dear God, I almost definitely should have opened the console. That was horrible. Especially when countries started revolting from inside of our kinsmen. That made things even worse. Somehow, some countries ended up becoming vassals of our previous self. We got to deal with these guys now. I think we'll just give independence to a lot of these guys. I mean, I don't care. Or I guess maybe we should keep them around so we can integrate them. They hate us though. They hate us. We might encourage them to rebel so we can annex them that way. Now though, let me read this event. With the victory of our revolutionary forces, the old government is no more. Whatever semblance of unity and protection it once provided is a long gone memory, while its horrors and mismanagement over the Roman people still linger to this day. Under the elected leadership of Consul Marius Valerius, the newly forged revolutionary Roman Republic shall bring prosperity, dissolve the ancient shackles which bound the burghers to their masters, and shall make the old world tremble. Long live the revolution. This will give us the constitutional state government reform, which will reduce our crown power and push us towards liberalism, and not much else, because we already had the constitutional parliament. All right, now we're back. What do we do now? Well, our nation's kind of in tatters. We lost a lot of people, and we also have to rebuild our people's legions because they were destroyed as they were on the opposite side in the war. But I think we're going to expand pretty aggressively. We're going to immediately start setting up spy networks on Mamluks and the Ottomans, and Bulgaria as well. One thing that was really annoying is it moved my capital from Rome, so all the unique buildings I'd built here, which were providing benefits for being our capital, they're all gone now, so we're going to have to rebuild them. Our economy's in quite a good place though. Wait, what happened to our navies? Did they all get destroyed? We didn't inherit any of the navies so what on earth? Really? We've lost all of our navies. Should we even bother investing in rebuilding them? I'm not sure if we should bother. Best to just roll with the punches, right? We don't need a navy anymore. Our centralization is close to being maxed at nearly 75%. Let's actually look at what our control's looking like. Well, of course, we'll need some time to replenish control. The game hasn't even registered that our capital is back in Rome. I think we'll be fine though. Oh, there we go, we're now a hegemony, with once again the cultural hegemony and a great power, as we should be. Alrighty, so a bunch of things just happened. I believe we've started a situation now called the People's Uprising. Because we're a great power, we are now the leader of the People's Uprising. Driven by widespread discontent against the monarch, economic hardship, and social inequality, our people have finally undone their shackles and taken power in their own hands. The spread of new ideals and literacy have culminated in the radical change within our society. Once powerful nobles that held power now cower behind their palaces of greed and despair, and we take up arms against tyranny and monarchies at home and abroad. Onward to spread the ideals of the republic. So we enter the people's uprising situation. Nearly every monarchy will have their rule challenged by the people, those oppressed by their feudal status quo. Countries that follow the revolution will be able to assist their comrades at home and abroad through unique actions. Countries that seek to crush it will be able to use the Crush Revolution casus belli and new actions. We will gain access to a variety of new actions such as institute government purges, demote local aristocrats, and more through the situation panel. Well, looking at the situation panel, the only thing we can do is spend 6,000 gold and 5 Republican tradition to execute somebody of our choice. It doesn't like any... There have been no successful revolutions in other countries. We need to be at peace. We need to be at peace. And we need 20% of our manpower. That's going to be hard. I think we're going to focus on restoring Rome before we think about actually trying to spread the revolution. We've also become the herald of the revolution, which gives us 10% manpower and 10% morale, but decreases our maximum war exhaustion. The time has come and the world has changed. Across Europe, the old order of monarchies, aristocrats are crumbling under the weight of revolutionary ideals. People demand change, and the winds of revolt blow stronger by the day. As the new leader of this movement, we must stand at the forefront of revolution that promises liberty, equality, and fraternity. The people rally to our banner, inspired by the ideas of a world unbound by traditions and privilege. With great power comes great responsibility and perilous risk. Those who conspire our fall will soon step forward from the shadows. The future of our nation and perhaps the world is at hand. We'll defend our ideals. Now we enter into a disaster. Those that thought the revolution and the republic would be the answer to the instability of Rome have become more and more disillusioned. The ever-increasing turmoil afflicting our nation has caused widespread suffering amongst the commoners and the burghers alike. Enthusiasts of the revolution have become even more zealous, blaming the shortcomings of the new regime on the enemies of the revolution, regardless of their actual affiliation to conservative thoughts. Meanwhile, the counter-revolutionary movement, led by the remnants of the old patricians, aims to restore the old monarchy. Spoiler, we didn't have a monarchy, we were a republic. We'll of course side with the revolution. This will lose us 50 stability and push us towards plutocracy. This disaster will end if we can survive for 10 years, or if we transition to either revolutionary autocracy, a revolutionary empire, or we stop being revolutionary entirely. I'm not really sure about the criteria for any of these, as I have never triggered the revolution before, but I guess we'll see how it goes, right? Because we've embraced the revolution, we have access to a new casus belli, the Spread the Revolution casus belli, which is even better than imperialism, and lets us conquer a lot of land, although they can also conquer a lot of land from us. Right, we've got our first Spread the Revolution casus belli. Our first target is going to be the Mamluks. I'd really just like to take every bit of land they have that is considered Rome, and then never have to think about them ever again. Let's see, how cheap would it be for us to annex nearly their entire country with this new casus belli? Around 178 war score, I believe, to take everything that is considered Rome, except for their capital because we haven't occupied it yet, obviously. We'll have to see how far this can go down once we actually occupy the land. Mamluks really don't pose a threat to us though, even though our army is very small now. I'm actually holding off creating new regiments because I want to research the next tier of regulars, because we have a lot of those regulars in our army that they don't have any manpower because we haven't got the research. So once we get the research for them, their manpower will of course kind of explode, which is what we want. So I'm holding off making more in preparation for them, for more happening essentially on their own. Then we can think about expanding our military. This revolutionary CB is actually really good because the war goal is to take the capital, which gives us that ticking war score very quickly and gives us a lot of war score just from occupying the capital. I'm a little surprised, in a good way, about how good this revolutionary CB is. We're going to be able to annex all of the Mamluk territory in the territories we need to form Rome. Unfortunately, we can't give power to the people in Rome because Egypt apparently has an active disaster. I can't see what disaster they have active, I don't think. They're in a disaster, so we can't give power to the people. So they'll just have to remain a horrible monarchy. Let's do it. Boom. Oh, look how nice and clean it looks. Alright, I think we'll leave it here for today. We're ready, willing, and able to declare war on the Bulgarians next with our revolutionary CB. Time to liberate Constantinople. It does say they're stronger than us, but that's not quite true. It's because we've just got the research up for the newest form of our regulars, so they're quickly going to be promoted. They're quickly going to be replenishing up to max, which is 3,000 men in per regiment, which is going to be a lot. So once these guys promote, I think what we'll do is we'll bring these guys over. We'll start promote it. We'll upgrade the army and upgrade all of the guys in the army to these new soldiers. Then we'll let them replenish a little, and then we'll declare war on the Bulgarians. It should literally just take us a few seconds to mass up our army. We're still a bit of a ragtag band compared to when we were the People's Legions, but I'm sure we'll be fine. How close are we to forming Rome? We're 1,000 locations off, which honestly with our new CB isn't that big of a deal if we can just start expanding really rapidly. Here's a question, are we going to have to conquer Britain? I don't know. Let's count locations. So we've got everywhere we need in Africa, it looks like. There's still some land in the Middle East we could take. Let's say the Ottomans, that's 100 locations. Bulgaria is about 200 locations, but they hold some land outside of what is considered Rome. So let's say they're just 100. Hungary's 200 locations, but they've got some land that's outside of what we consider Rome as well. So let's say they're 100. So 100, 100, 100. And if we say Castile, they've got 200. Surely their majority of their land is in what we consider Rome. Yeah, so we'll say all 200 of those. Let's just say 200 for Castile, 100 for Bulgaria, 100 for Ottomans, 100 for Hungary. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's half of the way there. France is 300, nearly 400 locations. How much of that is outside of Europe? Pretty much none of it. So just conquering all of France would get us pretty much there after we conquer all the others. If we throw Burgundy in, that's around 100 locations. So that would get us it. We'd be able to form Rome with that. So we don't need to invade Britain. We might end up invading Bohemia. I'm not sure. We'll just see how it goes. We're very close. It doesn't look like it, but it's basically like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wars, maybe 6, and we're Rome. So whether we can do that in the next 50 years, I'm pretty confident. I might start, inflation maxing and just go crazy just so that my army I can build a big enough force and just keep attacking without hesitation. We'll see how it goes. As I said, I'm pretty confident. Let's take a look at the cultural map mode before we stop. I imagine there hasn't been much difference. As you know, we lost all our religious aspects. I'm not sure if we'll get them back before the end of the game. Maybe we'll get a nice event that gives us some religious influence. But Lollard is still the majority in our country, only slightly though. It's eclipsed Sunniism. We can actually see Lollardism is spreading quite a bit throughout Africa as expected. The Sunnis are acknowledging ideology. There's actually very few Orthodox in our countries, despite the fact that we control all of Greece pretty much. Only around 3 million. Catholicism's still going strong. Lutheranism is pretty weak at this point. There was a time when they were engulfing nearly all of Europe. Now they're only really located in Scandinavia and Bohemia. On the cultural side, our new Roman culture has pretty much engulfed all of Italy. There's just a few holdout locations where the pop didn't fully convert, specifically in places like Naples, where you can see there's still a lot of Neapolitans around. Ironically, North Africa is very much converting to Roman, as well as some places in Egypt. So France is still not quite converting as they should. That's mainly because, again, the land isn't cored. What's our cored stat right now? We managed to do a lot of coring during the war because I didn't have to oppress revolts. So yeah, we actually managed to integrate a lot of our land. All that land we just took from the Mamluks is new land that we need to integrate. We've integrated nearly all of our French and Spanish or Iberian land, as well as a lot of the land we took from Hungary. As you can see, we've got quite a few revolts now, but I don't really feel threatened by any of them. We're only oppressing one of them, and we're doing a good job keeping them in check. Although let's have a vote. We've thought we're in the revolutionary disaster, revolutionary chaos. It can only end if we become a revolutionary autocracy or a revolutionary empire. Should we have a vote on which one we become? Let's have a vote between staying a revolutionary republic, which is obviously, the right option. The revolutionary republic governs the nation through a small executive authority supported by an elective chamber of deputies. Revolutionary propaganda will strengthen the resolve of our armies, and the principles of universal equality shall inspire strength and confident leadership. And then if we look at revolutionary autocracy, it's, while on the surface a republic, the revolutionary autocracy is akin to an absolute military dictatorship, led by a competent general or admiral who enjoys great popularity amongst the masses. And then the Revolutionary Empire. The Revolutionary Empire is a monarchy which makes some concessions to the ideas of the Enlightenment while ruling over the people with absolute power under the pretext of serving revolutionary ideas. So I suppose we'll have a vote. I'll let you decide. I haven't actually checked what the criteria for forming these is. So I think what we'll do is you guys can vote, and then if the option comes up, I'll select it, but I'm not going to force it. I've never actually bothered doing the revolutionary before, because I've never thought it was worth it. And I kind of still agree, but that CB is pretty nice, right? But yes, I'll let you vote, and if the option comes up, I'll select it. For now though, this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.